Welcome everyone to the Credible Nerds podcast. My name is Justin, and I'm here with my fellow Mistborn, Mark. How you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? Doing good.
Good, good. Good to see you again. We're back on the podcast. We're talking about this time. We're going to be talking about two things. We went to the Dragonsteel convention back in November. We did an intro video or like a prelude video for that, and we talked about what we wanted to see, our anticipation, and like what we wanted to read in the book. So we're gonna have that follow up finally about how the convention went, the Dragonsteel Con went, and we're gonna do a little review of the book and see how we liked it, if we did like it. So first off, I want you guys to I want to invite you guys to like the YouTube channel and to subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out a lot. So we'd really appreciate it if you would just subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of Cosmere videos this year. This is the year of the Sanderson, where he's got the Secret Project books coming out. The Lost Metal just came out. And so there's a lot to talk about. And our other favorite fandoms are kind of drying up right now. We got DC. I mean, they got a couple movies coming out, but man, that studio's a big mess. Who knows what's happening there?
Yeah.
Star Wars is in limbo outside of the Disney Plus series. They're good, but not a lot of movies to talk about.
Same
So
thing with books, right? I
yeah,
mean, books are, I know we do the Jim Butcher, Dresden Files a lot. That's kind of hit a real slowdown over recent years. And
yeah, it's another goal of ours to talk about the Dresden Files, get back on track with that.
hmm
So we are going to be talking about the Cosmere more this year. So in anticipation of that, and I got a big announcement for you guys. Hopefully, it's something that you're interested in. But we went to the convention, the Dragonsteel convention, in last November. We went to the book signing. We got to get our books signed by Brandon Sanderson, and
hmm
I think all mine are signed up to this point because we're always going to his conventions and his signings.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What number do you got?
I think 1,470. I
Yeah.
used to get like top 100s all the time, but after
Yeah.
COVID, it's impossible. Like they just do weird drawings now and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a little bit harder to get any number below 500 really nowadays, and it's like a lottery type thing. But
hmm
I'm going to be giving away one of my books, The Lost Metal, right? Signed by Brandon, numbered and stamped, and as you can see, it's book 1468. So we'll be giving away this. The caveat being you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's how it helps us out. We want to help you guys out. So one lucky winner will win this book. It's in great shape. It's just been sitting here on my table. Or I got a follow up, a second copy. I got one for someone, and they ended up, getting it on Amazon or something, and they didn't. They're like, I'm good. I don't know why they didn't want a signed one, but whatever. It's their loss is your gain. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we're currently at like 120, 121, so another 380 or so subscribers, we will do a live drawing, or we'll record the drawing if we can't go live, and pull a name out of the list of subscribers, and we'll reach out to you and let you know that you won. So please help us out, and we'll help you out. So any comments on that, Mark? What do you think?
no,
Are we
I
crazy?
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, I know you can get signed ones out there and stuff, but I mean, it's tough nowadays to get low numbers. Everyone's collecting them. Everyone wants, numbers. I know one guy was collecting from started at one, then he wants book two for the second book, book three for the third book, so he's collecting those. So I think it's a great opportunity, especially if you like the books and you want a signed copy. Not everyone can go to the conventions and get signed copies. And even when you send out for them, sometimes you get them signed, but they're not numbered.
Yeah.
So the
Yep.
numbered ones are the official numbers. So like that was the 1,468th one he signed, which is a ton, but how many people are going to have one that either aren't or just signed with no number?
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it helps us out. So hit that subscribe button, and like I said, we'll be doing more Cosmere content to wet your whistle. We are the Credible Nerds podcast, as it says up there, news, commentary, and reviews for the casual nerd, meaning you like the stuff, but you're not hardcore into it. We try to bridge that gap. We're a little bit more into it. We have, we want to bring information to the people. Credible meaning we're not clickbait. We're not going to make up lies. And we're not going to just, get clicks type thing. We want to be as truthful as possible. We do make mistakes. So oftentimes on Twitter, we get stuff. I'll read comments. Well, it's not very credible. And they kind of bring that against us, which is fine. I think it's funny. But, we do make mistakes. I think the last, like, for example, with our last Cosmere video of the convention, I conflated the first convention, the first Dragonsteel convention, and the second one that we were going to, and I kind of forgot about how there had already been one the year previously when they did one of the Skyward books releases, and I didn't go to that one because I like Skyward, but I'm not a big fan.
Was that in Provo?
Yeah, that was in Provo, the first one.
I remember talking about it, and we talked about going, and we're like, we don't read the book, so. But I didn't realize that was a convention.
Yeah, it was the full on. And this next one this year, 2023, is again a Skyward book, so I probably won't go to that. I like the books; they're fun, but I'm not buying them. I'm basically renting them, I guess, checking them out from the library. So they're good stories, but I'm not going to go hang out all day for Skyward. I'm going to hang out for the Cosmere Lost Metal. So this one's yours if you subscribe. But yeah, so we make mistakes, I guess is what I'm getting at. So we try to keep it as real as possible. There are better websites out there if you want to get down into the nitty gritty, the deep stuff, the lore. If you want to know about Aethers, what they are. If you want to know about investiture and all the different worlds, Scadrial, Roshar, all that stuff. There's some good websites out there. I often frequent them to like, oh yeah, what's this mean? Because it is like reading Brandon's book, The Cosmere. It's like studying for a master's degree or something. There's just so much stuff out there.
There's so much to it. So many angles, so many people. Each world's different, right? There's different powers. How do they all work together? Who's world hopping? Who's not?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel like I need a few drinks before I jump into it. But
yeah. So we'll try to dumb that down for you guys. At least have this be a starting point for those that are maybe a little confused or lost. And then if you want to dig deeper, drill deeper, go to like 17th Shard or those other places. So, yeah, we'll get started. The convention, Dragonsteel, was November 2022. We got tickets. We had the badges. We did the whole thing. 2 days. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it because it was at the Salt Palace, which is the big convention center in Salt Lake City. Comic-Con's held there. A lot of the outdoor convention, it's all the big things are held there. And it wasn't big in the sense that they had a small portion of it, so you weren't walking for hours all over the place. It was just, basically 2 big rooms, which was great. And it was very easy to just kind of see the booths, see what's out there. A lot of swag for Cosmere and his other projects, and they had the store there, so you could buy some books, some hats, some t-shirts, all that cool stuff. A lot of it's on his online store already, so that kind of stuff, but you could just buy it there without having to pay for shipping or wait for it or whatever. So what did you think about the booths that they had, the different vendors and all that stuff, Mark?
it was pretty cool. I like being able to buy there. I've bought online plenty of times. It was cool to buy the leather-bound book of Warbreaker, which was cool. So I bought that one.
That's a good book. Like pretty, very. I love that book. The look of that book.
I'll grab that for you in a second. I'll show you. Yeah. But they're pretty neat. If you've never bought one of his leather-bound books, they're amazing. They're so beautiful and nice. I mean, I'm not going to sit down and read it.
Yeah, you don't want to read it. You're like just barely crack it open. Whoa, that's awesome.
But they're neat. There was a lot of neat vendors. 17th Shard, I think, had a place there, and I think we went and asked them a question or two, just kind of see what they thought. A lot of different things. I thought the one cool thing with all the vendors is that they were all kind of in on the money, right? Remember? Yeah. So like they kind of had an event there where you could get money for doing different things. And it was money from, the Mistborn series, clips,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could buy different things, or you could
Raffle
bid on different
entries.
things, raffle entries for the clips, and that was pretty cool. You were supposed to pay for your papers, and apparently I didn't know that. And I just was grabbing papers, and I'm sure people are like looking at me like, "What a jerk!"
Yeah.
I just didn't know, and so, but it was a lot of fun. I think my favorite one. I don't remember what it was called. You remember it? And we went in there like the museum, and
Oh
it was
yeah.
kind of like Hoyd's Museum or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That was really neat. That was probably my favorite one. Super, a lot of time went into that to get some of the things right and bring out skeletons and memorabilia from the different books. So that was a lot of fun. I did like that.
Yeah. And I think in one of Brandon's appearances or question and answers or whatever announcements, he said that they're going to try and do that like as a real thing somewhere, like a legit
Oh
thing.
yeah,
It's just you can go there. It's
yeah.
like,
They should. They should. I'm gonna grab that book. Hold on.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. I thought it was a great. I mean, obviously it's the second one. I thought it was a great start to the Dragonsteel convention. Hopefully, he's able to keep it going because he got a lot of books to write. It's a great
Oh yeah.
platform to announce, to release them, and talk about them.
So this is the Warbreaker book. It is the oh shoot, I hate this. It's the leather bound edition. It is super pretty.
Oh
I
yeah, it's
mean,
so nice.
it looks nice. You open it up. It's got, I got to back up a little bit. It's got like drawings in it, some sweet pictures. This one is signed. So
Yeah,
it is Brandon Sanderson signed. And it's pretty. I sit on my shelf. I have probably 6 or 7 leather-bound books from him. I mean, you can read it if you want, but this is mostly collectors. But if you like to get leather-bound books and stuff,
oh yeah,
his stuff's quality. It's good
it's
to
a
get.
great deal too. $100.
Yeah, 100
'Cause-
bucks for a signed book.
yeah,
So it's not numbered, but they're signed, and I don't think he's actually even ever numbered any of the.
when he announces them, when they initially sell, like the first couple hundred are numbered. I don't know what number they go up to, but then
Okay.
they go in like the first 5 minutes. So
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it was neat. I like going. I wish we could have gone more. It's really weird, right? Is on a Monday,
yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah, that's right. It was Monday, Tuesday, and we were complaining about that.
Yeah, and we had work. I just started a new job, so I couldn't just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need the first 2 days gone. So I think we showed up for mostly in the late afternoons and would stay for a little bit and had a good time. But
Yeah, we went to a couple panels. They were pretty cool.
mhm. Yeah, there were some pretty neat panels. I remember like reading the book and thinking back on the panel, one of the panels where you're into, and how it connected. It's like, oh, it's actually kind of neat. I went to that panel.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, so it was definitely a good thing. Got some cool swag. It was a good time. Got to meet some people. We did a post on our website, crediblenerds.com, on the homepage where we met a guy named Gus and his wife who makes cakes. She made a cake for Brandon Sanderson. It was a Mistborn cake, and we got some pictures of that on our website. And she also has an Instagram page that you should check out as well. So you can find that info on crediblenerds.com. So check that out. A lot of cool people at these conventions, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's really fun to kind of see the different people that are into the books.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I was talking to you one time on the phone about I think we were talking about the convention, talking about the books, and my neighbor
Oh yeah.
heard me. And then I got off the phone. He's like, "Oh, were you talking about the Mistborn series?" And him and I started talking about it. I never knew he was a fan. Never would have pegged him for a fan, but he loves it. So,
Yeah. Yep. It's a good community.
mhm.
So the Lost Metal is Mistborn Era 2, Book 4. The first era was a trilogy. This was a quadrilogy, I guess. Smaller books, not as lengthy as the previous era. But it is, the final book in the Wax and Wane series. I enjoyed reading, these books, Alloy of Law, and all the way up through here to this Lost Metal. I thought they were great characters. I enjoyed the story overall. But the big question going into this, what is the Lost Metal? We got some hints in the previous books. What do you think, Mark? After reading it and getting to the end of it, what is the Lost Metal?
I think like everyone else, everyone assumed it was adium, adium. How does everyone pronounce it now? I don't know.
Right.
Anyways, I thought everyone was, and then it kind of came out in the book. It kind of like leaned towards, is it Lerasium?
Laracium.
Lerasium?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think it's both. They're both kind of a lost metal, and um, like how to split them and how to use them, how to create more.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And so that was really neat. And then it leaves a lot of questions. What if you start combining it, with was it
Etametal.
metallurgy? Yeah, etametal or metallurgy or futurochemist and all
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff, right? So like then you get some weird questions about what it does once you start combining them with other things. Um, but it was pretty neat. So yeah, I definitely think it wasn't just ADM. I think it was both ADM and Lerasium.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think we had guessed that it was ATM, but it's. I think both of those fit. The one question I have is in the era one of Mistborn, ATM was they're well they're called god metals, right? Atium
Hmm.
and Laracium because they're from the bodies of the god, right? I mean,
Yes,
ATM is from Ruin,
from Ruin. Yep.
so we were saying, well, it's a finite amount. Once the body's gone, then the metal's gone, and we saw that at the end of the book of book 3 of Mistborn, Hero of
Hmm.
Ages. But yet they're still able to create it. It's still around. It shows up later in this book at the end, towards the end. We find out about it that it was in play a little bit. So what does that mean? Is the body of Ruin bigger than we think? Is it more than just someone's body? Is it like I don't know. I was still confused about that part. Like, where's it coming from?
It's kind of strange, right? Because Wax is able to use et metal to combine with um, to split using trellium, right? They split et metal using trellium to create more lerasium, right? So it's coming from somewhere. And while preservation's body did die, it still exists, right? Because they're just combined with harmony, right?
Right.
And so it still exists. And as I was looking into it, this is going to bring way more questions, and it kind of goes off topic a
So this
little.
is
But
your theory.
I don't know. Yes, a little bit. I don't know how true it is.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
This is just some reading I came across,
Okay.
and what it says is so there's savantism, right? Where like you basically use so much of like you how to explain it. Do you know what it is? If savant, a savant is someone who uses the investiture related ability so much that it kind of changes their physiology,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, anyways, there you can become an allomantic savant. And what does it say? It says if someone were able to burn the amount of lerasium needed to become an allomantic savant, so just an insane amount of lerasium, so you'd have to keep splitting with that metal, they would ascend and become the holder of preservation,
Hmm.
similar to what happened when Vin consumed the mists.
Okay.
Which is weird because does that mean it would take the power from Harmony?
I would think so.
Right?
Hmm.
So I don't know how true that is. I don't know if this is like words from Brandon or he mentioned this somewhere.
So yeah, it could be both, one or the other. I want to see Mistborn again though, right? In the next era, I missed them. I thought they did some cool things with just each one person having just one access to one metal, like Wax did and Marase did. So it was fine, but I wanted to see that power that we saw from Vin and Elendil in previous books. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we'll get that.
Yeah, be interesting to see if you start seeing people live like I don't know how far in the future the next one's going to jump, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's announced it. I don't know anything, but it'll be interesting to see if the future comes and it talks about, oh, they've discovered how to, use that metal and make more, whatever. If people start living longer, because then they can start restoring their health, kind of like the Lord Ruler,
Yeah.
and just live. forever. Um, so that'll be interesting to see if that kind of thing happens. And I'm also interested to see if there's more world travel, right? Because that's what he started sending out the people to check out,
Yeah.
sending out his Kandra.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll start to see that in all the books from now on. Because we're getting that in the Stormlight Archive. We're getting that in this series. We're seeing characters from Cell show up in these stories. So there's a lot of cross travel.
So do you think this era is happening at the same time as Roshar, the current book in Roshar?
Yeah, I think you're pretty close.
So
Because
so Mistborn and Elantris just happened way before, and then Elantris 2 is kind of supposed to kind of catch it up on the timeline.
possibly, yeah. I don't think they've really nailed down when Elantris takes place.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
We just assume it's
Well,
earlier, I guess.
actually, there was a hint in this book. Now that I think about it, because they go to we see the Ghostbloods on this world, Scadrial,
Hmm.
and there's some members there, and one of them is the character, the main character from the Emperor's Soul, Shy,
Oh yeah.
and she's Moonlight, and then we also see a character. They did code names, right? And one of them was code names are stupid. And it's hypothesized that she is from the Elantris story. I don't know if you remember when Serene, the girl, shows up to her uncle's house for the first time, and she meets all the cousins, and they're younger, and like one girl is just like really mouthy towards her and challenges her, and she's like really smart and stuff. So her name is Kaze, I want to say. I don't know if it's Kaze or KZ, but it's she says something that kind of hints at something that we learn or we see in Elantris. So it could
Mm.
be around a couple years earlier, I think, a few years earlier, because she's more of an adult in this story. In Elantris, she's like a 10, 12-year-old. So
Okay. Hmm. Interesting.
yeah, so I think they're pretty close to each other based off that. If that's true,
Yeah.
if that speculation is true, which I think it is.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but yeah, this book starts off 6 years later than the previous one. I typically don't like time jumps like that.
Hmm.
A few months, yeah. I mean, well, in the sense that we had the first Mistborn era was pretty close to each other, and then it would jumps forward like 300 years, and that's fine because that's the start of. We got to have progression. And for the most part, these books, were within a year of each other. But this one's 6 years later. And I kind of threw me off guard because there was a lot of stuff that they were referring to that we never saw off, because it happened off screen. What did you think about that time jump? Were you okay with it, or?
It took me a second to kind of catch up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I remember reading about it because it kind of hops right in, right? The book kind of hops right in, right in the get go with Wayne and dang it, what's her name?
Marasi.
Yeah, Marcy, right? And they're going, so you don't really feel it, but then when it hops to Wax,
Yeah, he's
you
got
really
kids.
feel, yeah, he's got kid, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, wait, he's retired
Yeah,
and he's not helping, like, like Wax and Wayne are, in one, you don't see one without the other, and now all of a sudden they're separate, and so that was kind of took me for a little loop, and it I don't know if it really it felt like it slowed the story down for me. I don't know that it actually did because I read it pretty quick,
yeah,
but it felt like it just was like I had to read a lot to catch up
yeah,
with him, and then with Wax and um, Marase,
yeah,
I could never say her name, Marase. It just kind of flowed like
yeah,
nicely. Like
yeah,
it was just like, oh, it doesn't matter what happened in the last 6 years. This happened, but you could throw a dab in there, it wouldn't matter. But yeah, the Wax thing was really tough to. It just kind of seemed like I was always playing catch up with him.
yeah. So yeah, a little like you said, off-putting. So he's retired from being a conner. He's now a senator in the new government, and like you said, the other two are the main constables tracking down the set. They're still trying to track down the set. In the last book, we saw that They captured his uncle, and then we learned that he died. He got killed by the Set because they didn't want him talking. I think they blew up the jail or something that he was in.
Yeah.
So all that happened off screen. His sister Telson's now in charge of the sets. She's running things, and she's preparing for the god Trail to return. Is kind of the cover story. And Trail's a new name. Maybe we heard it earlier in the other books, but there's a lot of focus on Trail now. There's actually a metal Trellium, so he was an older god. It took me a minute to figure out he's an older god from way back when that we don't know. I think it was even pre-Mistborn Era 1 is the impression I got. And so he's trying to make a comeback basically. And but really we find out that it's the god, the shard autonomy. And this is a new shard that we hadn't heard about. So we've heard about ruin, preservation, odium, cultivation, all those guys from other stories, but this is a new one. And she operates a little different in the sense that she uses avatars or people of herself to bring about like take over the planet that they live on. And so that
she kind of, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying she kind of lets them do it their own way.
Yeah.
Lets them be autonomous, right? Even though they're part of like an entire collective, almost like Borg style.
Yeah.
Really, like they go about it individually. Like their goal will remain the same, but how to do it individually is kind of what's about, because then you get, like Trail, right? You get people that really stand out and can do good things or bad things or whatever it is, but they get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's kind of a way so they can prove themselves. Like, is this person going to be good enough for autonomy to work with, and are they smart enough, strong enough, whatever. It's kind of a test for them. And so that's Telson's. She's trying to come up with a way to overthrow the Elendil Basin, that government, because they're like kind of the main. I don't know if they are the main force of the planet right now, but they're one of the top ones. We don't really know about the southern nations because we never. We'll talk about that later, but that's something that was not really addressed in this this book. But so the whole plot is how they can stop Telson from bombing the Elendil Basin, destroying it, and allowing autonomy to show up and kind of take over. So that's kind of what we see. Wax comes back into the fold after a little bit. He has to join the fray and help out Wayne and Marasi to uncover the plot and defeat Telson. So I thought the story, like those story beats, were good. I felt that it was a little off-putting in the sense that I was expecting more from the southern nations. What are they called again? Who are the southern nations? They are the Malwish.
Oh yeah, the Malwish.
Because they show up last book. They got flying ships. They got these medallions. That all this crazy tech that are like, oh sweet, this is awesome. And then we don't see them. We see a ship show up at the beginning. One of the ambassadors. They're not really involved in this story, which I was disappointed about.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like, because it's a little steampunk era, right? Where they're kind of getting in the industrial age, kind of, right? And so 6 years happened, and all of a sudden they have these huge guns and battleships pointing, so that it kind of offsets the I don't know, advanced Malwishi. I don't know what is the plural of Malwish.
Yeah.
The Malwishiisms, and so, but it was kind of weird because all of a sudden in 6 years they caught up.
Yeah.
Really, really quick. And whether it was due to autonomy's people, because you saw they're the ones that had the battleships and things like that, or whether it was they just had it and they never made it. No one had taken the time to wait a minute, they got flying ships. We should turn these pistols into these awesome guns that can shoot 15 miles randomly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was kind of quick, and that part weirded me out. That was the only part that I was truly like, this is strange. In 6 years, you went to a early cowboy age to World War II.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
Right.
And I did notice that, they were, what's the name of the city? I can't remember the name of the city they were in, but it was outside of the Lindo Basin that the set operated in. And they go to that city to track down the set. And that's like, a modern city, basically, that just expanded out of nothing in 6 years. So
Yeah.
it was off putting. I agree.
Yeah. Because like before it was like, yeah, it was a bigger town in the like it was like I think it was they consider it the biggest town in the what do they call it, the wilds
The
or
roughs.
yeah, the roughs or whatever. But then all of a sudden, yeah, then it was like he goes there and it's like, oh, this place could actually challenge the main city. It could challenge Ellendale. I
Yeah.
can't say it. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, the Lindo.
I can't remember. Is it Bill? No, it's Bilming. It was
Yeah,
Bilming, right?
Bilmy. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like I mean that's on this coast, and I know it talked about they had a lot of trade and stuff like that, but yeah, it's kind of weird. Like all of a sudden it was just this, and nobody knew. Like everyone's like, oh, what the heck? Look at
Yeah.
this awesome place. It's like you're in this weird political fight with the roughs, and nobody's been there for 6 years.
Yeah. What about your spies and just people
Yeah,
going on vacation?
no
Passing
one
through.
comes back. Yeah, no one comes back and says, "Hey, I don't know if you've been there in a while, but they got like battleships and they got like these tall skyscrapers and buildings that all look the same."
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's kind of just out of the blue.
Come on, Brandon. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But
So, but in this book, we do get a lot of Cosmere stuff, crossover, like we talked about earlier. People crossing from one planet to the other, and I'm assuming they go through the Shadesmar. Maybe it was even stated in the book, but
yeah,
they okay. So yeah, they have to travel through Shadesmar to get from one place to the other, which is interesting because we just found out about Shadesmar in the Stormlight Archive. I don't know, a couple books ago, and all of a sudden, and though I think though the Roshar books and these books are pretty well, at least this era two, are pretty well teamed up. They work together, and so that was surprising. All of a sudden, yeah, everyone's traveling that way now.
hmm
So
well, I wonder too if Harmony always knew about it, but it's like, okay, I got to fix this first before I can even deal with that.
yeah,
Like,
I think so because he
because
was. Go ahead.
he exists on multiple planes, doesn't he?
Probably. I mean, he's a
I,
god.
I guess I guess just assumed so. I don't know.
I mean, he's a shard. He has 2 shards, right?
hmm
So I would assume so. And he seems to know about what's happening on other places too. So, and then we hear about the Ghostbloods. We learned about them in the Stormlight Archive a little bit. I met them, some of them, and I think it was revealed in Rhythm of War that Kelsier's the leader of the Ghostbloods on Roshar, and then he's obviously here, the leader. On Scadrial, and they said that the Ghostbloods exist to preserve and kind of protect Scadrial and make sure that things aren't destroyed, that the bad guys don't win, that autonomy doesn't win, and so this group is kind of working undercover, covertly to keep things going well. What do you think about the Ghostbloods, Mark? Did you feel like they didn't seem to be too many of them? They didn't really help out. They weren't like, hey, let's work with Wax and Wayne because they're the main big players and we should help them because our missions are pretty similar with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I kind of got the sense that there's way more Ghost Bloods. Either they're spread out, like this happens to be the base of operation in this town. I'm sure they probably have one in Malwish. I'm sure
Yeah,
they have them,
because he was
right?
traveling from the southern cities at some point
Yeah,
on an airship.
yep. And I'm wondering if he has part of the reason why the Malwish hasn't attacked because the Malwish know him, and so they've obviously met him and seen him, and he doesn't want them to fight if he's trying to keep Scadrial alive. Um, so and then there's obviously some on other worlds. My wonder is like, yeah, they exist to keep Scadrial safe, but what is his ultimate goal?
Yeah,
Like, because he seems like I mean, obviously he knows who Harmony is on a personal level. I'd have no idea if they talk or how much they talk or whatever it is, but he seems to kind of have like a, I don't know, like he is impatient with
Yes.
Harmony.
Yes.
Like he is like, he's not doing it right. I almost feel like he is working against Harmony at times.
I think so.
And so I wonder what his overall goal is, with the Ghostbloods, what they're gonna do, and I I just don't know what's his move.
Yeah.
Is he gathering power and he has his ultimate, idea of what should be happening, and he's going to fight for a shard, or like I wouldn't put it past him, right? He wants a shard, he's gonna get one.
Yeah. Yep. And he does talk with him at the end of the book a little bit, right?
Hmm.
But I don't think there's a lot of those type of meetings. He does know that Says isn't very attentive. Right? He's letting things slide. He's not doing his job. So I don't know. I think we hear that from Marsh too, at some point. They're frustrated with Harmony. Everyone's frustrated with Harmony. Like Wax is, right. He's mad at him because he didn't tell him about his girlfriend. In the previous books, how she was, alive and was being used. So, and I'm disappointed because, because they put the label of God on Sazed, and all our reference points on this planet about God is he's nice, he wants to help us, he cares about his kids, his people. But this God, like, he comes across that way at times, but then he doesn't do anything to
Yeah.
protect them when there's an otherworldly presence coming that they know nothing about. And he's like, well, figure it out. Hopefully you figure it out in time.
Yeah, and that's what Kelsier said to him. Like,
Yeah.
We can't wait. Like, we're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And so, but that seems like that's kind of who he was before, right? He was never a man of action, like
Yeah.
before he became God, and now he's got two opposing powers inside of him that I'm sure that, like, right shoulder, left shoulder, talking to him, telling him what to do. Oh, sounds like ultimately he can do whatever he wants,
Yeah.
but he's just so indecisive, and it drives me nuts. It drives,
Yeah.
like when it's like, oh, look, they're here. It's too late. Good luck, guys. I sure hope you can do it. I'll make sure that it's as even fight as it can be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, come on, man.
It kind of reminds me of Kelsier, or not Kelsier, Kaladin.
Oh,
He's like, I don't know. He freezes and doesn't do anything.
it's like Kaladin 2.0.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's just frustrating to read. So, yeah, that's that story. But we're also introduced to Twin Soul, who's a ghost blood, and he uses aether, like this crystal that needs water to he like builds things from this sand or these crystals, and so I think it's the first time we see that here in the Cosmere, and I thought it was. What did you think about his magic system and what he did with what he had to be able to help out the crew?
I thought it was cool. I want to know more about how it all works, right? Because I'm trying to remember exactly what he did when he went like crazy down in there and like,
Yeah. Well, if he would
started.
build walls to protect him from gunfire, I think he built a ladder at some point, at the end, when all the civilians needed to escape, he like built this big rock monster. That's what the impression I got. And kind of led the way to clear the way for everybody to get out.
Yeah, that was cool and all, but I'm like, what the heck? Like what kind of toll does this take? Is it just like what does it cost him?
Yeah.
Right. And so I wish I would have known more about it, right? I was like, dang, it's an interesting character. I want to know more about it. Where's his book?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'll come up at some point in the near future. But we read more about the aether and these crystals in, the new book that just came out, Tress of the Emerald Sea, which was the secret project number 1.
Hmm.
Read about that. Not about him specifically, but about all that magic system. You find out a little bit more about it, which is pretty interesting. We'll do a review on that here in a little while at some point. But so it was good to like read that. Oh, that's kind of cool. And then the next book you read it and you're like, whoa, it's the same thing. Same kind of thing, same kind of deal. So that was cool. I think that's it for the ghost. Oh, Shy. I think we mentioned her before, but she uses the door, the magic from Elantris. They have a bottle. They have bottled door. They're able to they were able to take off planet and use it. They bring it from Cell, which is where Elantris takes place, and bring that to Scadrial. And that kind of powered them up, right? It was a way to become even more powerful, use more of their magic system. So, what did you think of at the end? She basically turns into an Elantrian to help Marasi escape, right? And she becomes all powerful. She just heads off and I'm assuming, starts kicking butt, and she goes berserk.
Yeah, we don't ever really know what happens, right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
kind of goes off and does her thing. It's interesting. I have to reread Elantris because I don't remember them because she's like, I'll lose myself. I won't be me. I'll do this. So I was kind of like, I don't remember that happening in Elantris.
Yeah. Well, she loses herself because she does the stamp. She stamps herself. That changes her personality, just overwrites her soul, basically. She becomes this other person. And that was from the Emperor's Soul. We're on a much smaller level. This is like, an extreme that she's able to change herself to an Elantrian, which I thought was pretty interesting because, people don't do that. We haven't seen that done before.
No. So it was kind of cool, though. I liked it. I mean, it was something interesting to read. I don't know. I feel like that's going to have more effect in a later book.
Yeah.
Than we don't get a lot out of it now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of setup that happened or was pushed off in this book for the next era, which in some ways I didn't like. I like that it's, world building and setting up for future stuff. But, again, like the Malwashi, or the Malwishi, I wanted to see, what happens with them and who they are, really. But we didn't really get that.
Yeah,
so
we get there.
All these things, I wanted to know more about the bands of mourning. I don't think there was some story points that were resolved. The ones I can think of is, they kidnapped people, Metalborn, that from the first book, Alloy of Law, when they'd come in to the parties and take people and they wouldn't see them again. We find out what happened to them. They are placed in a community underground and made to believe that the world's been destroyed and they're the last citizens alive. And so they have to live together and reproduce and create with the intent of creating more Metalborn or even a Mistborn at some point. So Marasi stumbles upon that and kind of sees them, is able to free them. So I like that we kind of got some closure there. But that was like book 1, it finally pays off. But there's a lot of stuff from the last book, even, the Bands of Mourning. That was a big thing of the last book, and then we find out that they're drained in this book. Like, we don't know why, who, what happened, or anything. It's just like, oh, they're used up, can't use them anymore.
Yeah, that part was weird, and that, that's setting up for something.
Yeah, but how do you power them up again?
Lord Ruler.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a good question.
I guess they're like, are they like what do you call it? The ferrochemy? Are they ferrochemical? Where you got to store them, over time you store more stuff into them, and
I think so. They must be, right? Because it's basically, because he says it's basically a big, like a well. You know what I mean? Is what it is. But what's weird to me is that they're with the Kandra, and Harmony has no idea how they got drained either.
Yeah.
So is there a Kandra that is not a true Kandra?
Yeah. Or he's got his own agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So yeah, what's that? Are we going to see him again? I would imagine so. And if we don't see him again, I'll be disappointed because that's a huge weapon, huge benefit to someone that was never discussed. Just kind of disappeared. Again, the Southern Kingdoms, the airships, not really resolved. We don't know anything more about them than we did in the last book, really. So with Scadrial's three manifestations of investiture, we talked a little bit about them. Allomancy, the metal, burning the metals, and in this era that's very limited. And then there's Ferrochemy with storing power in metal bands that people can access later. And then Hemalurgy, which I think had the biggest changes in this story. Because I think the previous two, they were powerful before, and they just kind of decreased in power. They were still there. The rules were still pretty much the same. But Hemalurgy changed a lot in this series. So Hemalurgy is the art of, in the previous books, they would spike a victim with a metal spike through their body into the body of the person who wanted more power. So they would basically take that person's power onto themselves with the aid of the spike, and that person would die. So it was like an evil version of investiture. Well, it is an evil version of investiture. So, and we've talked about it in the past, and you seem to you're interested in this one, Mark.
Yeah, I think Hemalurgy is interesting, right? Because you're stealing power,
Yeah,
you're taking it, very effective way, right? And that's kind of what everyone assumed was happening to all those people for a long time. Obviously, they were stealing lots of power. Hemalurgy made the Kandra. We know it's effective.
right.
I feel like that was the lower form of what was available in the world, and with the new discovery on how to make, Lerasium and Adium, that you're going to see that Hemalurgy less and less. But I think there's something to be said on what happens when you combine Hemalurgy and,
Yeah,
Lerasium or Adium or whatever, right?
right. The god metals, especially because in this book or in this series we had Wayne. No, yeah, Wayne, who was twin-born, right? He could use Ferrochemy and Allomancy at the same, different spots. So yeah, are we going to see a what do you call it, a triple born where they can use all three effectively and powerfully?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see less and less Hemalurgy, really. I think that with the discovery of more Lerasium and Adium, we're going to start seeing more Mistborn. And I think you're going to start seeing more powerful Mistborn, right? Because the amount of power, didn't they say, like, I think it's somewhere it says, like, the size of the ball or how much Lerasium they take depends on how powerful they will be. So I think what will be really cool is if you see you have a twin born, kind of like what Wayne was or something. They're born with one of those abilities, and they're a full Mistborn.
Mm.
So I think you're going to start to see some crazy things here. And then I wonder if it's going to bleed over into other worlds. Like, could you imagine a full shard plate Mistborn?
Yeah, I think that's the end goal, honestly. There's
Yeah,
going to be
but
some type of combination of these abilities.
and then, like, I don't know, are metals the same on other worlds? Can I go to Roshar and find these metals? Like, does iron exist as the iron form that they get, on Scadrial? Or is it a different, is it going to burn different and have a different effect because it's not the Scadrial form of iron? Or you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
I wonder if there's going to be some things going down that way. I remember one of the questions I asked Brandon years ago one time, and I said, hey, could someone from another world use powers from another world, and would it be effective? And at the time he said, like, he's like, they could, but the effects might be different, or it won't be as effective.
right.
And so I don't know, so maybe that does come into play. Like, it's only can exists in specific places. I don't know. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll see that in the later stages. For some, we're going to see these, autonomy and odium, all these shards that want to take power and control. They have to be repulsed and fought somehow. So I think we'll see these worlds that are starting to come together now, and we'll start to see them. We'll see more of that, and we'll see them share ideas. They'll travel Shadesmar or even a different way, a lot more efficiently. I think it'll get to the point where it's not even, going to Shadesmar, getting on a boat, going through that whole thing, and then finding the opening, going back, to the other world. I think it's going to be like a gateway type thing from Wheel of Time, where they just open it up, step through to the other place, like travel. I think we see that with the Elantrians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they were able to, where the one guy, Rowden, was able to travel across the sea to rescue his wife Serene at the end and defeat the bad guy. So as long as they have the coordinates and how far it is, they can travel that way. So I think we're going to get that in later books for sure.
Yeah. And I wonder if we're like, because it sounds like all the shards have their own ambition.
Right.
But it sounds like there are some that are semi-teaming up, right? I don't know if are we going to start seeing like real team up here, or does everyone still like, I'll be your buddy for now
Yeah.
until I'm not?
Yeah. A
Right.
temporary alliance.
Yeah. I honestly, future thought, I think that either Harmony is going to be split apart because someone's going to use so much Lerasium or Adium. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want to be all powerful. Like,
Yeah.
come on, someone's going to do it. Or he'll be shattered.
Yeah. Well, I've been seeing the Discord theory recently. I haven't really looked into it too much, but at some point, Harmony, because in this book we even saw like there was a part, I think it was towards the end, where there was like a shadow of Sazed at some point, like a dark version.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
yeah.
Like, I don't know if that was Ruin. I got the impression it was Ruin at the time. Like we were seeing Ruin and Preservation. But there's talk about a Discord, like he'll turn into Discord instead of Harmony. He's the opposite. Like Ruin will have more power, and so he'll be called Discord or something. But I don't know if someone causes that, or he does it himself, or what. But yeah, I think we'll see that too.
Interesting.
But yeah, lots of potential. I think that's why I like these books. Well, one of the reasons is because there's a lot of potential. And Brandon's pretty dynamic with coming up with new ideas and combining all these things. Let's get to the characters. That's kind of the focus of this novel. We had all that stuff we just talked about is backstory. Or a vehicle to create character growth. And I think that's why we didn't get a lot of explanation on the Malwish, on all these other things that I was wanting to read about. Because I think Brandon he's shortened it down, focused on characters. We have Wayne. He's been there from the beginning, right? The first book, and he's one of the main characters. But at the same time, he's always a secondary character on some level, right? But not this novel, not this story. He's, right from the beginning, he's with Marasi. They're out doing things. We get more viewpoints from him. With him, we find out he's a millionaire or super wealthy.
He's like the top 3 richest people in the whole land. Like he's like this dumbest smart person in the world.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, let's create this game, and he's like just trying to like create, like spend his money to get rid of it. But then he ends up creating more wealth as he goes along.
Yeah, he basically creates like the NBA kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like makes the an association, and then let's build like all these stadiums. And he's like, these idiots won't go. And it's like, wait a minute, that's exactly what we do, and they make hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny. But he does, one of the key things throughout the novels is when he was younger, he killed someone, a guy, and he had a family. And he felt guilty. And so he's been paying money to help out this, one of the daughters. And we kind of get a resolution to that he's able to permanently help her out and just, set her up for life because of his wealth. So stuff like that starts to come around with his friends. He starts to make resolutions and come to better terms with them. With Steris, they're always. I always took it as half jokingly, but they're kind of annoying each other. But even they come to a good place right towards the end. And as his story goes along, you start to pick up on these things. Oh, all his contentious relationships are starting to become resolved. That's usually a sign that someone's going to die. Because no one can be happy, right? In these stories. Someone always, whenever there's conflict and it gets resolved, the next step is death.
100%.
So let's talk about Wayne and his hero's death. What did you think about how that all went down? They were able to jump after they kind of, I guess they defused the bomb, kind of. At least what they thought they had. Then they realized, the bomb's really on the ship, the battleship. So they jumped to the battleship. Wayne takes over, and he along with the help of Sazed, right? He's there kind of helping him out, giving him clues. But he's able to use his time bubbles, and at this point, he's full Mistborn. How did he become Mistborn? He just got some dust. Did Sazed give it to him, or was it from the explosion earlier?
It was from the explosion, that Ep metal.
Okay.
Combining it with Trail, and both him and Wax became Mistborn.
Yeah, I knew Wax was, but I couldn't remember if Wayne was. Okay.
Yeah, because remember he was like, "Oh, is this how he feels?" Right, and then he pushes Wax out the window at the end, and it was legit an awesome ending, and only he could have done it. Right, Wax couldn't done it. He didn't have the power to do it. He couldn't do this time bubbles, and that's what I was talking about. Full Mistborn with these kind of abilities is going to be insane.
Yeah.
It was a pretty awesome death for what we know of Wayne. Wayne never wanted the spotlight. He felt like he did something horrible, and he wanted to be a good man. He wanted to make amends. He always followed Wax. Like I can never be the hero because of what I did. I will play second fiddle my whole life. I mean, this guy had Milan. Is it Milan?
Yeah.
Break up with him, broke his poor little heart, and I felt bad for him. I was like, oh man, this guy, and he really struggled with it, and he's feeling like he doesn't deserve love, he doesn't deserve this, and then you find out like Milan actually really loved him, and all that, and then for him to go out that way was, I think, the ultimate redemption story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he gave his life to the world. It was an awesome ending. And he knew it. Like, he knew it before Wax knew it. He's like, this is it. Like, this is why I exist.
Yeah.
All my hardships, everything I went through, and it was cool that God, Sazed was there with him at the end.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna go and it's gonna be lonely like that, it'd be nice to go like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I think Brandon put a lot of time and effort in building it up and setting it perfectly.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it was an emotional ending, right? I mean, got a little misty-eyed there at the end reading about that, and it's just like, whoa. That's pretty intense. Well, those are tears of joy, not sadness.
Yeah, my eyes hadn't blinked in a while. That's all it was.
Yeah. So, yeah, great character arc for this guy. And I liked how he finally figured out he can forgive himself. Wayne or Wax had been talking to him about a lot, mostly in this book, I believe. But he finally bought into it there at the end, and that was good to see that, hey, it's okay. You're a different person now. So, Wax, like we said, he takes a back seat to the action there at the beginning, but then he joins the fray later. But yeah, his character arc, he was always trying to be the guy, the hero. He was always trying to save the day, and he felt like that was his role, and he was getting tired of it. He didn't want to go back to it after a while. But he's able to, at the end, kind of comes to terms with who he is, that he can be multiple people in the sense that he can be a father to his kids, a husband to his wife. He can still be a lawman when he wants to, when it needs to be happening. And he can also be a senator. He can be all of the above, and he's not going to be less if he chooses one or the other, but he can do all of them at the same, as needed as his life goes on. So I thought that was pretty cool. He figured that out at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I loved his Superman moment, right? When they're they're all fighting over in Bilming, and they're losing.
Yeah.
They're getting beat, and like it's
By
like,
their
oh my gosh.
doppelgangers, by the Bizarro Wax and Wayne.
Yeah, but right before they fought, he shows up, and it's like you start to realize how feared he is,
Right.
right? Because he shows up and he turns the fight, and people are like, "Oh crap, he's here! Like we got to go." Then the doppelgangers show up, and that was cool. Um, all the way to the resolution when they realize like, oh, like I can't fight myself. I don't know how to beat myself, but I sure know how to beat Wayne because
Yeah.
I've been studying that fool for years.
Yeah.
And Wayne's like, oh, I know how to beat Wax. Like just do this. He always falls for this, right? Like just
Yeah.
kind of funny. Um, but yeah, his arc was tough to get into for
Yeah.
me. Like it took me a little bit, but once it got into like once he landed at Bilming, it felt like he fleshed out, like he decided who he really wants to be. I want to be all of it,
Yeah.
as opposed to some of it. Like, okay, I can be a lawman, but I can't be a rich person like I am. Okay, I can be rich and a senator, but I can't be a law. Okay, I can be all of it, and that was cool to see. So yeah, his arc ended really good. I kind of wish we got to see the future a little bit, kind of like 15 years in the future to kind of see what becomes of him. I'm sure we'll hear little bits and pieces in the next era. Um, but he, as much as I like him, he wasn't my favorite character. Wayne wasn't my favorite character. Steris is my low key
I
favorite character.
know.
That
She
chick,
totally grew on me too.
that first book, I hated her. I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh
this
yeah.
lady, man, like just get with her sister, please
Yeah.
get with
Yeah.
her sister. And then like now I'm like, man, Steris is my hero. I would marry her.
Yeah. I know. At first, same thing with me. I was like, oh, who is this chick? He's got to marry her. That's terrible. It's not going to happen. There's no way. It'd be a terrible match. And then each book goes on, and then yeah, like you said, this book pays it off. You're like, wow, she came into her own for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a character journey for her too, right? She needed to accept herself, accept what she perceived as flaws, but they really weren't. I mean, other people made fun of her for this and that, but at the end of the day, those skills that she was being made fun of saved, the basin.
Mm-hmm.
So, she realized that she is a strong individual. She can stand on her own or she can stand with her husband. They're both good options, and she's both good with both of those things. So that was great to see too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when she's coordinating all the efforts, right? She's
Yeah.
like, basically the governor finally turns her and says like, just freaking save us,
Yeah.
like, and she's like, okay, boom, pulls out like, you know, what is it like, in case of catastrophe, plan number 212.
Yeah.
Oh, look, what do you know? I've got this one written down.
Yeah.
Like, it's so random, and like how awesome she is, and she's always so prepared. And, even though that's so tedious and crazy for the chick, I was like, sorry, this woman, it was awesome.
Yeah. And Marase, I thought she was going to join the Ghostbloods. I kind of wanted her to.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that with Shallan in Stormlight, where she was approached by them. She was going to join them. Then she decided not to. So I was kind of disappointed that she did the same thing in some ways, but at the same time, the choice that she did make, it fits her. So my personal preference was for her to join the Ghostbloods because I wanted to learn more about him. I think that's what it was. But I think the choice that she did make was the right one for her character and what was needed, in the sense that her goal was to be able to become an ambassador for the Southern nations because her boyfriend was from there, and she needed to spend time with him and see if that relationship's going to work. And then I think we read eventually she becomes president, or she was going to run for president or governor or whatever of Elendil at some point. So I think that was fine. What did you think about Marase and her? I liked her overall arc from beginning to end. But what did you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I really liked her in the first book.
Yeah.
Second book and third book, I don't know. I just feel like she kind of dropped off as a character I liked, but her story was still good, right? Kind of like, where she, started out as like this illegitimate child or something like that, and like
Yeah.
not sure who she is and got her footing. So it's nice to see where she's ending up and, see that she's going to succeed. She's broken barriers, becoming the first woman constable or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I think I don't know. I just kind of fell out of love with her character in general over time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I see what you're saying. 'Cause again, like you, I liked her at the beginning. She's one of my favorites in the beginning. And then she kind of became a background character and then stepped up in Shadows of Self. And then at the beginning of this book, I liked her a lot. Um, I don't know. She's out of I started to like Steris even more than her in this book. So,
Hmm.
um, but Kelsier, we see him, which was surprising. Marsh, he's still around. We saw him a little bit in one of the earlier books, Death, and Sazed and Harmony. So the three originals from the previous books, um, there. It's cool to see them. Um, what do you think about kind of? Is it plausible that they're still at least Kelsier and Marsh that they're still hanging around?
In the next era,
Well, in this era, and do you think they'll be around in the next era?
yes, both.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll be around. I think with the just because he was like dying, right? Marsh was,
yeah,
but with the discovery of Adium, I think he'll be fine.
yeah.
So I think Marsh will stay around. Kelsier for sure. Can he even age and die?
I don't think in his current state, no.
Yeah, so he'll be around for sure. Um, yeah, I think we'll see all three of them. I feel like I want to see more from Marsh. He's around. Who knows what the heck he's been doing?
Yeah, yeah,
But I want to see more from him. Like I feel like he's being held around for a reason,
yeah,
but we don't know why. But can you imagine someone like Marsh? And maybe that's what we'll see, the combination of um, full Mistborn and or Laurazium and Hemerlogy.
yeah, yeah. Because there's got a reason that because he's like you said, he's not really showing up. He's just kind of hanging around. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the purpose? I think the purpose is, yeah, here he is. He's still here. But the next series, he's going to be, a badass or whatever. So I think, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a good guess there. Good theory. Will we see Wax kind of take on a role like that where he's somehow becomes immortal or he lives a long life and he's a major player in the next era as well? Him and his wife and his kids, or is this his swan song? Is this it for him in this book?
I think he's done. I think his era's past. His, like what he can offer for what he brought to the table is done. I think he did a great job through the second era. I think this next era will surpass him. Right? He is an old country cowboy, constable dog. I mean, at the end of the thing, we're running into. We went from early industrial age to now we're in computerized rockets
Yeah,
in the space of 6 years, and so I think that his personality and who he is will be outstripped by the new era,
yeah, that's
and
a
I
good
think
point.
it's a good time for his exit, with that transition. I mean, maybe we'll be dealing with Wax the third. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's a good time for him, to move the story on past him.
Okay, so those main three will continue, but all the characters in this era will. That's it for them. Is what you're thinking?
Yeah, and I think we'll see, like, even in the next one, we're gonna see like the effects of what Wayne did. Like aside from building whatever game they were playing, I don't remember what it is.
Yeah,
I think we'll see stuff from that. I think everyone will talk about, oh, Wax the great man, and
yeah,
Marasi this person, and Steris the amazing plan. Like they'll talk about them. Just
right.
just like they did in Era 2, they would always reference the old heroes. But just like from Era 1 to 2, they're going to become legendary heroes from long ago.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right there. Like Wax, he was a descendant of one of the crew. I can't remember
Oh, what's his name?
his
I
name.
can picture.
Yeah,
I can picture how he looks in my head, but I can't think of. Um,
yeah. The yeah, it escapes me right now, but so maybe something like that, like you said, Wax the Third. So, the Khandra, they're a big mystery. They're there. What are they doing, really? Um, they work for Harmony, and Harmony's off in his own his own world. It's not really interacting with people. I guess they do stuff, but it's usually just like, Milan was a big player, and then there was a couple others. But there's more than just those three or four. So what are they doing? Are we, are they just again like Marsh? Hey, the Condor's still around, but Era 3, we're really going to see what they do. Is it gonna be something like that? We at the end we get a perspective from Milan. She's in Shadesmar. I got the impression she was headed to Roshar, but
mhm.
and then in Tress of the Emerald Sea, there's a Condor there, and it's Tress of the Emerald Sea is the farthest out in the time, one of the farthest out stories in the timeline. So it's like way out there, and the Condra have changed a little bit, and there's even a statement that Sazed sent them out to do something, or he disbanded the Condra or something like that. So they're going to be around for a while, based off that story. That's in the future, quite a number of years. But what are they going to do? What's their role moving forward?
Mhm.
And what about Kolos? We always hear about some of these people have Kolos blood. So are they? Which I find is weird. They somehow mixed the Kolos and humans interbred. That seems
Yeah,
weird.
you'd have had to get it early on, right? Before they went crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know how the logistics work.
yeah. I don't want to know. So
Oh my, huh? This is awkward.
yeah. So are the Kolos done? We haven't seen them, right? Are they pretty much interbred with the humans now, and they're as a pure Kolos race? They're done, or are they still around?
Yeah. Oh, Breeze. He is a
Breeze, yeah,
descendant of Breeze. That's
that's
right.
right. Yeah, I liked Breeze.
Hmm. But yeah, I don't know what, because the Koloss were made. They were like the imperfect. I
They were
can't
like
remember exactly.
they were like Gen 1. No, Mist Wraiths were, I think, were Gen 1, then Kolos, and then Condor, I think is how it went.
Yeah. Um. But Koloss, like, they just kept growing, right? And eventually they would just grow and die.
Yeah, they'd
But
stretch their
they,
skin.
but they could have kids and stuff like that, right?
Well, no, because the Kolos were people,
Hmm.
right? There's some transform. I forget. I just read it a couple months ago. And I can't remember.
Let's see. This is what it says. Koloss are large and dangerous beasts that the Ruler uses in.
Right. I think I remember in Alloy of Law that there was mention of a Kolos horde out in the middle of nowhere or something. So I think they might still be around, but we don't hear anything. Uh, Okay. And then we didn't see any mist wraiths, right? I don't think so. Yeah, that was another thing throughout the book, is the mist would sometimes be there, but not very often. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So lots of good stuff in this story. So this wrapped up Era 2. What'd you think? Are you satisfied with this ending? Um, okay. Swords. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I liked it though, as well. Definitely as a standalone book, as well as wrapping up Era 2. I did like lame. Yeah, I wasn't watching either. Okay, back. I'll just start. Yeah, overall, I liked it as well. I thought it was a good wrap up for Era 2. And as a standalone story, it was good. I did like the characters in Era 1 better, but I thought the
Mm.
vehicle for the story of this era was better in some ways. So I'm satisfied. I'm happy with it. 9 out of 10 for me. Enjoyed reading it, and I'll definitely do a reread with it at some point in the near future. So, any predictions for Era 3? Where do you want to? I think we talked a little bit about it already. What do we want to see?
I think Era 3, we're going to see much greater discord between um, Harmony and Kelsier and the Ghostbloods. I think we're going to start seeing some actual friction, like
Yeah,
moving against each other.
yeah,
And I think whatever is that, now, like that you talked about Discord, I could see that pushing towards the Discord. Um, Also, I think we're going to start seeing wars across worlds in the next era.
right.
So I think that you're going to start seeing more movement with all these shards against each other.
Yeah, I think we'll see more tech as well. There's been talk about spaceships at some point. I think we're getting to the end game, so I think we might see that in the next era.
Why spaceships though? Like you could just
For
go through Shadismar, or is it just
yeah, I
like
don't know.
there's going to be wars on multiple planes?
Yeah, definitely for travel. So maybe I don't know. We saw in Six of the Dusk, I believe it was. That's the furthest story out in the Cosmere. Spaceships are involved in that story, that short story. So I think that's the one of the end game moments. But we'll just see more tech, computers. We saw a laptop in Tress of the Emerald Sea. We saw a tablet. So we're going to see that sort of stuff start popping up. But yeah, I think we'll hear about Kelsier's, what his goal is. What the Ghostbloods are about, like you said. That's going to be pretty interesting. And I think because Stormlight 5, he's working on it now. He's going to write that and then take a break. That's like the first era of Stormlight. And then he'll take a break and at some point start wrapping up with 6 through 10 for the second era. So I think Stormlight 5 will line up with this Mistborn Era 2 to some degree. We'll probably see some crossover from this era into Stormlight 5. And then I don't know what's going to happen after that. I mean, who knows?
Be interesting. I think we'll start learning more about the history, because I know there's a lot of thought out there like, well, what shattered the original anyway, right? Is it what they call the original? I can't remember.
Andalasium?
Yeah, Andalasium or something. Yeah. Why was it shattered? Like, there's thoughts of it was betrayed by people who were there, and there's questions. Well, was Hoyd there? Was he not? I've heard yes. I've heard no. So it'd be, yeah, he was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's like, what really? I think we're gonna start hearing the greater story.
Yeah, I agree.
And
plus, in this, I think it was in this book, Twin Soul talks about the 12 Aethers that were around before the shards were shattered.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start hearing more about, like you said, where are these Aethers? What are they? Where do they come from? What's that all about? And if they predate the shards, then yeah, I'm sure they'll go into that history. So that's a good call. So, all right. We want to thank you guys for joining us here on the Credible Nerds podcast as we review this book. Again, if you want a copy, number 1468 from the Dragonsteel Convention, signed, numbered, and stamped. Let me get to the page. Just like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And when we hit 500 subscribers, we'll do a drawing. Also throw in one of these broadsheets. They're handing these out like candy. So got a map on the back.
They cost 2 clippings.
Yeah. So we'll throw that in too. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for listening. And if you have any thoughts on this book, The Lost Metal, Cosmere in general, definitely leave a comment. Hit us up. Let us know if we made any mistakes, what you think, and we'll be getting back to the Cosmere here in the next few weeks. So thanks, guys, for joining us. And there's always another secret.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.